What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Mayrand podcast. Today, my guest is Félix Rioux. Félix is a legend in the skiing industry. We talked about him growing up in Montreal, getting into the industry via the snowblades era, being a professional ski photographer traveling the world for over 10 years, while starting other businesses like D-Structure Shop and the IF3 Festival. We also talked about Félix's current role as marketing director at Chic Shack Resort in Murdochville, Quebec. It was really interesting getting his perspective on many topics. Thanks to this episode's sponsors, Dic Anns Restaurants, Access Boardshop, Treefort Lifestyles, J Skis, and Planks Clothing. Let's go. Mr. Félix Rioux, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you. I've talked to a lot of current pro skiers or, skiers at large. And I'm really stoked to take the time to have guests like you that have been behind the scenes. And plus, another guest that I've had on is Jason Leventhal.
Yep.
And I guess you're kind of in the same generation as him, where you've seen... we'd seen
I was
English,
he was actually a partner with me in a company.
What company was that?
It's an old company. It was called Mother's Milk Magazine.
Mother's Milk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think you told me about that. The Snowblade magazine.
Yeah.
You mind telling me the behind-the-scenes story of that?
Sure. That was in 1999, and skiboarding was kind of really exploding. It was at X Games before freeskiing was. And both Jason with Line and Salman, they needed a print media for skiboarding, and they knew I was a photographer, and I always was involved in different kind of media projects at that time. And they said, "Hey, if you want to start a magazine, we'll pay for you to get started, and just finance the mag."
So they just saw it as an advertising platform, basically.
Yeah. So that was kind of a side business because I was already traveling the world for Salman as a team manager and photographer.
Were you a photographer and a team manager on the side, or a team manager and a photographer on the side, or it was really like both were actual jobs?
They're two separate jobs, but they were one and the same because when I actually got started in the early 90s to mid 90s, I was a photographer. I was already doing photography, and I met these guys that were really, really good at rollerblading, but really bad at business. So I would be shooting photos with them, and then
with local people from Quebec.
Yeah, all guys from Quebec, and I would introduce them to sponsors and often do the link in between because most sponsors didn't speak French, and these guys were not all good at speaking English.
Or not business savvy.
Or business savvy, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you're from Montreal.
Yep.
Did you grow up as a skier? Like, you ended up being a ski photographer and living your life in the ski culture.
Yep.
Was that something for you growing up?
I grew up as a skier, but I never liked like the moguls or racing. I was already more interested in the freestyle or, just kind of go and have fun on the hill kind of approach. And so that was my background. And for many years, all my buddies were all switched to snowboarding. And I stuck as long as I could.
You never switched?
I did switch for 5 years. Yeah, I snowboarded for 5 years because at that point, like, skis were getting boring. And, clearly all my buddies were having too much fun on snowboard. So I snowboarded for 5 years. But, it never felt natural for me going sideways. And when I saw in 1999, I saw Jeff Cusson do a Switch 7 at X Games, and I had goosebumps. I'm like, that's the future right there.
That's like a way to
that
have
was not
fun.
99. That was 98, I think, because already a year later, I was already working for Salman.
Okay.
But that was that moment that kind of clicked for me was just about a year before.
And when you were snowboarding, were you on those like kind of carving snowboards, or really the ones?
Yeah, I had the real snowboards.
Those seem weird now. It's like something we'd see 15 years ago, but it seems like it's kind of dead now.
I never really caught on. It just, some people did it, but the majority did not. So, I mean, you use hard boots on the snowboard. That was kind of against the whole idea of snowboarding.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you just wanted something that was a lot more flexible and freestyle.
Mm-hmm. So the photography side.
Yeah.
Is it something that came naturally kind of learning, or did you go to school for that?
I did go to school for that, but I started way younger when I was like, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. I've been using a video camera. I've always had access to family friends that had video cameras and would make movies and have fun. But I never thought it of a serious thing, just like have fun. And then when I went to CEGEP, I studied in architecture, and we had a photography class to help us understand perspectives and composition and stuff like that. And that's when I kind of got more serious into photography. I had buddies who were musicians, so I would shoot them doing concerts and shows or whatever. And then I met those guys rollerblading, and I started shooting photos of them. And by that time, I was getting pretty good at photography, and these guys were really getting good at rollerblading. And 2 guys from Montreal actually won 2 years in a row X Games gold medals in street.
Which are Dic Anns.
First year was 98 was Jonathan Bergeron, and then the following year 99 was Dic Anns.
That's crazy. I was watching videos this winter of that. Like, you remember the 2 Japanese brothers that were that were crazy in the pipe? It's crazy how that sport kind of died. Like late 90s, it was big X Games, everything, and now it's kind of non-existent.
Problem with rollerblading being at the X Games, it kind of happened too fast, and the level wasn't there for the exposure they got. And the skateboard industry really got pissed off because they've been doing their thing for, at that point, was like 40, 50 years that the industry was building up. And rollerblading, to be honest, was not at the level, to be there. But whatever, that's corporate decisions that brought it to X Games, and it's corporate decisions that took it out.
So they didn't have like the base of competitions in the culture or industry. So when X Games,
the culture was there. It's just that the technical difficulty wasn't compared to skateboarding at the same time. If today it's it's quite different. I mean, I still have friends from 20 years ago that are still pro rollerbladers, but there's
But what does pro mean?
Well, it means you make a living.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a really underground sport.
Yeah.
I'm not too in touch with who's doing what's going on, but I know a few friends are still doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is, yeah.
Like they've been
there especially when you're 35 or whatever, and you're still doing that. I mean, that's good for them.
I bet they're not like still chucking double backflips out of the vert or like.
I mean, I think the Yasutuko brothers are still skating. I mean, there's still like Asian X Games and stuff like that. So there's like, it's still happening, but not so strong
still
here in
big
North America.
In Asia?
Yeah, in Asia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you work with those guys that are pro rollerbladers?
Mm-hmm. And so I see Jeff Kisson do the Switch 7. And I'm like, that's the future of skiing. At that time, I decided I'm going to drop snowboarding and just get back on skis. And I was looking for a way to start working in the ski industry. And I was already kind of working in the rollerblade industry. And some companies like Salomon were doing inline and skiing. And actually, they were the brand at that time, with the 1080. And so I kind of got in through snowblading because Salomon was looking for athletes and team manager and photographer. Like, they were looking to build their snowblade program. And since I already knew the guys in the inline department, I got introduced. And so I started working for Salomon. For 3 years, I was like the team manager, photographer.
And am I right? I think you told me that you proposed to rollerbladers like Dic Anns, like, hey, maybe you should try on skis.
Yeah. I mean, they started with snowblading because that was the entry, like the open door to have guys. And to be honest, I think that snowblading is very close to rollerblading in the sense that you don't have a lot of surface to land on, so you have to be really spot on. So for them, it was a super easy transition. So I got guys like Nicky Adams on the Salmon program and Yannick B for all the old schoolers out there. But Yannick was like one of the first ones to actually do switch ups on rails.
And now it's time for a first sponsor break. Dic Anns is a family-owned restaurant chain with 12 locations in the Montreal region, and I'm really stoked to have them as a sponsor. If you've never been, you have got to try it out. Their one-of-a-kind hamburgers have been favorites of mine since I was a kid. They've started selling products like their legendary sauce, and they have a lot more coming out soon, so be on the lookout for that. Support companies that support skiing. Support Dic Anns restaurants. Like back in the 90s still?
Yeah. I mean, I think I got video of him doing that in 99 on snowblades.
Well,
and then a year later on skis.
It's crazy to see people from, like, because we're used to more recent skiers, like we think of Tom Wallish and things more recent, but you see videos of like Antoine Gagné back in the days, and he was doing crazy tricks on rails.
Well, Antoine is the guy who inspired his brothers, Charles and Vinny. You know, they looked up to him. He was the creative one. And they were the ones that had more, I'd say, probably ambition and determination to go forward, you know.
Yeah, I remember shots from Antoine on the Glacier and Whistler, like doing 1-footers and grabs while he's... You really see the inline influence.
Yeah.
It's...
You'd be surprised how many pro skiers actually rollerbladed.
Yeah.
They won't say it publicly, but I know.
So, yeah, how was the... Do you remember their first time getting on snowblades for Nicky Adams and those guys?
Nicky, I remember it was at Mont Gabriel, and first day was doing flat spin 540s.
Really?
Yeah, Japan. First day.
So there was no like pizza and like trying to...
No, they're skilled, you know, they have a lot of skills, and probably Nicky as a kid, he probably had like a few ski class thing or whatever, like with school, you know, sometimes they... Yeah. But he didn't have a formal training on skis. It wasn't like his first time on snow. It's just like...
Maybe being an extreme guy, just the fact of like not being scared and...
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
He was 15 years old. 15 or 16. Anyways.
Okay, really young.
Mm-hmm. He won X Games at 15.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Was he like traveling alone?
If he was traveling alone?
Yeah.
No. Like we were a crew. Like we were like the French Canadians like showing up everywhere at
his
events.
dad for the moment.
What's that?
You were his dad for that trip.
Yeah. Actually, I had notary documents, so we could cross the border. Yeah.
So you act as a team manager for Salomon. Salomon. Both inline and snowblade?
No, just snowblade.
Snowblade?
Yeah, I was actually assisting the team manager that was running the 1080 team. And sometimes it would cross over where I would travel with some of the 1080 guys, or we would like, you know, be the whole group together depending on what are the events. Like, for example, X Games, everybody would stay at the same lodge or whatever. So we had a lot of like when we went to Japan, we were all together. When I went to France, we were all together. So I got to meet GP, JF, Philou, Vinny, all those guys at that time.
By Salomon.
With Salomon, yeah.
So I think the first time I heard of you, or first times I heard of you, were all related to big production ski movies. I don't know if it was Level 1, Poor Boys, maybe all of them. Yeah. How did you start getting involved with all these companies?
Well, because I was already... I mean, you got to go back 20 years ago, there wasn't 100 pro skiers. There was about 20, 30 big, like, known athletes. And so everybody knew each other. It was a smaller industry. And I would travel with a lot of these guys on shoots, either shooting photos, but I also did video. I edited some segments, like... I think I edited 3 segments in Stereotypes, Iberg's movie.
That's a classic.
Yeah, that's a classic. So I did, film a bunch of stuff just here and there.
So being a small world, you get to meet everyone and then become friends. And
yeah, exactly. We're all traveling to the same events all over the place, and in between comps, you figure out like, okay, let's go do a backcountry shoot in Alta or whatever. And sometimes there are contracts also that, you know, like a ski brand will need someone to come in and shoot this, and they're going to do an ad campaign or whatever. So there was a bit of going to events, getting also some gigs of like backcountry stuff, and sometimes I would just like meet up with the Nimbus crew, Eric Pollard, Pep Fuhas, Chris Benchetler, those
Andy
guys.
Murray.
Yeah, Andy. So like they would invite me. I would spend like every spring go spend about 2 weeks with them, just travel around. One time we camped on Mount St. Helens. It's a volcano that erupted in Washington.
Okay.
In the 80s. So there's a big crater.
Damn.
So it's super cool spot. So you got to sled there. We had tents and we just like slept.
But is it still? Is there still some?
No.
It's
There's
not. Nothing.
No, it's just nothing.
So
it's just a really cool spot to go.
How does it work? Like working with a crew like Nimbus, do they pay you to come, or is it more like you take the photos that you got to take, and then if you sell them, then it's yours?
Yeah, exactly. So that's more like an editorial shoot. So it's not a company that hires me.
Mm-hmm.
I take my time. I spend, like whatever. Like it wouldn't cost me much because I would crash at their place, or we would be camping or whatever. If there's any cost, they would cover it. But they're like just like show up, spend 2 weeks. All you got to pay for is your food, and that's it. So that's why often I would end my season with those guys, like spring skiing style, and on the West Coast. So a lot of like booters in the backcountry. And
do you have more creative liberty? Like let's say a
100%.
Salomon shoot where you're really paid to be there versus going on with a film trip like that?
Well, a film trip is a lot more fun and creative because you actually take time to do things. Whereas when you're on a contract or a gig or whatever, it's like, we're here for 2 days, let's get the shots done, and it's a lot harder to create magic if you want. When
it's rushed.
It's just rushed, and sometimes just the conditions are not there for it. And it's more fun. A film shoot is a lot more. It's a lot more effort because you're there like days on end, and it can last a while before the shoot's over. But what you get out of it is a lot more rewarding.
Did you ever end up making money with photos outside of skiing? Like, let's say you go to that volcano you're talking about. Did you ever end up like taking photos of like landscape and being in some magazines or whatnot?
A little bit. No, it's very. I mean, I over the years, because I travel a lot all over the place, and I always, not in the first years. That's what I regret. Like the first years, I would just go in, get the work done, and then go back home or go to the next trip. And after a while, I realized, well, I'm here. Might as well spend a few extra days on my own and do my thing. And so I at one point I started doing that. Wherever I would go on a trip, I would make sure I could stick around 2 or 3 days and enjoy it personally.
Yeah.
And I submitted photos to Getty Images, for example. And I mean, it doesn't pay a lot, but it's just that every year it's a little something extra that comes in.
That's like people pay to use them.
Yeah, it goes into an image bank, and
if people use it, they pay a fee and you get some royalty.
Exactly, but it's it's a tiny portion. Otherwise, now it's been I kind of stopped shooting skiing as my main income, and it's just more now for fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out of skiing and I do more commercial work.
Well, you've been shooting a bit with us this week.
Yeah.
In Murdochville, and the guys were still impressed. Like they were tapping something.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Holy shit, he's so clutch! Like right on point at the tap, and he still got it."
Well, that's years of training on film.
Yeah.
Because you can't sequence. Well, you can sequence on film, but it's just like costs so much money to buy film and develop film.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta train yourself to get it right.
That's like muscle memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta anticipate when's the right time.
And now it's time for a second sponsor break. Planks is a British outerwear brand founded in the French Alps. Yeah, you can ski in the UK, but you probably wouldn't. But these guys are still passionate about skiing, and as someone from Quebec, I definitely relate to that. They don't just make high-quality, good-looking gear that's affordable. They care about the free ski culture too, running grassroots events and sporting skiers that are some of my favorites like Woodsy, Lupe Haggerty, and the Real Skiffy crew. Make sure to check them out at planksclothing.com. Support companies that support skiing. Support Planks Clothing. How do you prepare yourself when you're on a shoot like that? Is it a matter of having a couple tries where you kind of muff it to have it right, or
Yeah, you got to get the rhythm. Just like the guys, they got to warm up. Same thing, you know. For me, I got to warm up. You can't just expect first shot to be good. You know, I got to feel like, first of all, when I shoot a lot with the same athletes, I can't anticipate how they ride, when's the right time they're going to grab, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, these years I don't shoot it as much, so I don't have that kind of relationship with all the athletes. But I still once in a while shoot with guys like Jeff Wood or whatever, and it's like anything. When you know someone really well, you know how he rides, you know when he's gonna grab, and you're ready for it.
Who's your favorite skier that you've had over your career shooting?
I can't say I have a favorite, but you know, there's the guys that like Jeff. I've met him. I think he was like 13 or 14. So I followed his career and I've documented all these years. Phil Casabon, it's always fucking insane to shoot with him. Emile, for urban. Otherwise, like the old school guys like Yannick B was one of my best friends, and we traveled the world and we had a great time. And yeah, I mean, there's so many guys that when they're a pro level, usually they know what's up and they know what to do, and it's easy to work with.
It's not a chore to make it look good.
No, not at all.
It already looks good. It's just a matter of...
Yeah.
Same thing with video. It's like if someone does a street rail with a crazy trick, it's like everything's there. You just gotta...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's either you have it or you don't.
Yeah. You started shooting rollerblading 20 years ago.
Oh, more than that.
25, 30?
92, 93.
Almost 30 years ago?
Yeah, almost.
You've seen the whole progression.
Yeah.
That's a kind of an easy question, but I always like to ask it is, how does it feel like watching Phil or Emile in 20, like, I think you shot with Emile for his real ski? Some photos?
Yeah.
How does it feel seeing like the state of street skiing in 2020 and the evolution?
I mean, the evolution it's pretty insane compared to when we started like 20 some years ago. But I think it's sad that the industry is not supporting it anymore. I think it's still a major play. No, I wouldn't say major, but it's still an important segment. It's usually where kids get in, because the backcountry stuff is that
not relatable. I think.
Well, it's not relatable.
Maybe for a Quebec guy like me.
For East Coast skiers, it's hard. It's hard to access that environment. So. Yeah, so it's not relatable. You're right. So I think it's important. And touring is really, really strong right now. The backcountry is really, really strong. But once everybody's got their touring kits, high-end touring kits, then the market's going to slow down and they're going to realize, okay, it's like it's a trend. It's like a wave.
Yeah.
You know. So right now touring's on top, and the more free skiing, more jib or park, whatever, is at the bottom. And then in 5 years, it's going to start going back up, and touring, everybody's going to... Because it's about where the money is.
Mm-hmm.
If the money's in touring right now, the industry is going to put their money there. And at one point, everybody's going to get their gear. That's what happened with rollerblading. In the 90s, it blew up. Like, they sold hundreds of millions of rollerblades. Like crazy amounts. Like the rollerbladers, like the street skaters, were making like $100,000-$200,000 a year. Crazy money. And they're like 16 years old. Insane. But then at one day, everybody had their rollerblades. They're not going to buy a new pair every year and so on. So it crashed at the same time with X Games not bringing it back. So all these sports, and I've seen snowboarding and skateboarding, the first time I snowboarded was 1987, and it's gone up and down and up and down, and same for all these action sports. Like there's certain trends, and right now we're at a peak on one side of the ski industry, and it's at one point, I think one day it's going to slow down, and then something else is going to pick up.
Mm-hmm. A thing that Jason Leventhal mentioned when I had him on the podcast is that he thought touring was going to be maybe a product, maybe I'm paraphrasing, but a product that a lot of people are going to have hanging in their closets.
Oh,
Like they buy it and
100%. 100%, because you have some, especially right now with what's going on with COVID and everything. A lot of people are like, I'm going to go in the outdoors and this and that. So what do I need? I need this gear, this gear, this gear. And then some, you know, it's skiing is a sport you need to have a bit of money to do. And so they're going to buy their gear. And once you have it, that's it, you know?
once the lift open again, then you're back.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I mean, there's a bit of both, but at one point, yeah, it's just, it doesn't matter. Like good gear, once you have it and you take care of it, it's going to last you a while.
Yeah.
You know, jib skis.
Jib skis is a good market because
it's a good market because it's a repeat market.
Yeah,
exactly.
If you're active on them,
yeah,
you're lucky if it lasts you 2 years.
Yeah, but I don't know what's going on with kids. Like I feel like there's not as many young skiers coming up.
Yeah.
Like if you just go back 10, 15 years ago, it was huge with, you know, teenagers.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, let's say, because right now it's all centered around FIS events.
Yeah.
Because back in your days and my days, even though I'm young, it's there was a lot of independent events that would create like the whole industry or culture. But right now, they've all gone and it's all centralized into FIS points or FIS related events. So if you look like, let's say, the Team Quebec, like the 6 or 7 skiers, they're incredibly good. But it, like, you know, it's kind of focused onto like our hopes for the Olympics, and that's it.
Well, that's where the Olympics kind of screwed up the spirit in the way that, yeah, it's a great window on our sport, but it shouldn't be the only one. And if you're not doing park or pipe on the FIS circuit, then you're nobody.
Yeah.
Or you got to be a backcountry skier. There's no like not
skier
many
in general.
I mean, like Phil Casabon is a good exception in the sense that he made his name a long time ago, and he can still make a living doing his thing. But how many guys are like him? Not many.
Not many. Some guys would talk about another exceptions like Henrik Arlo.
He still does comps though.
He still does comps. Like he does everything. He does comps and then will do his own movie. But for many, it's like with the competition schedule and the training camps and whatnot, they don't even have time. Like even though they would like to, well, they might have it, but it's like it's intense. And then there's like Belmar was telling that to me, is like, well, if I go on a street trip and get injured, I don't think like the team or, you know, whatever entity will be stoked. Whereas before, you're your own boss. Like you get your sponsors, but then you do the projects you want. How long did you work full time, like as a ski photographer, working for brands and going on film productions? Was it like a 10-year span?
Oh yeah, easy. I'd say until from 99 for 12 years, from 99 to 2011 is when it was just a full time. That's what I did. I would leave Quebec for 5 or 6 months a year and be on the road. And then afterwards, well, I got a family, I got kids, and you know, you also get tired of always being in a van, traveling and sleeping on the couch and this and that.
Yeah, I guess were you homesick or?
It's not homesick. It's just that, you know, it's hard to make a build something in the long term when you're always. The problem is like living in Quebec. The action's not here. Yeah. You know,
you got to export yourself.
You got to go somewhere else. So it's like mainly if you're in North America, then you got to be on the West Coast. And I wasn't willing to move on the West Coast to make it like really a more serious, a more viable thing. Because after, you know, in the last few years where I was a ski photographer, a lot of the brands, instead of giving you a season contract, which was the case when I worked for Orage or Salmon, is like they would pay me X amount of money for the whole season. They have access to the photos, whatever they decide not to use, I could sell to magazines or other sponsors or whatever. But after a while, like the market with digital, what happened is like now there's a lot of photographers and they're all willing to tour for free and shoot for, you know, or for smaller amounts or whatever. And now the companies would tell me, well, go shoot, show me what you got at the end of the season, and I buy what I like. And, at one point I had like 10, 15 grand on my credit card at the end of the season. I'm like, oh, fuck, it's not a way to go.
There's more risk.
It's a lot more risk, yeah.
And now it's time for another sponsor break.
Access Boardshop is a ski and snowboard shop based out of Saint-Sauveur, Quebec, Canada. They've been in business since 2002 and have supported skiing since day one. From sponsoring numerous athletes to putting on competitions to helping out movie productions, they've done it all. Axis is the core board shop, and they've got everything that you might need this season. Check them out at axisboutique.com or go check out their shop in Saint-Sauveur. Support companies that support skiing. Support Axis Board Shop.
It's understandable on their part, but for you,
yeah.
there's less incentive.
I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. It evolves, and then I decided I didn't want to go that route. Maybe if I moved out west, it would be easier because then you can transition in the summer with mountain bike or whatever, and have a lot more work in the action sports industry. But my reality is I live in Montreal, and I also wanted a more stable lifestyle and build a family.
So in terms of action sports photography, what's the percentage of ski versus other sports that you've done? Is it like a 99% ski?
Oh, during those years?
Yeah.
Right, 90%, yeah.
What were the others?
Well, sometimes there could be snowboarding or whatever.
Always related to snow sports, kind of?
Well, yeah, a lot. But then in summer, I would do more, I don't know, clothing brands, a lot of clothing brands. And also I got into architecture, photography, because I studied in architecture, so I've always had a keen interest in architecture. So that's like a totally different world.
Do you kind of stand out with let's say the typical architecture photography, being someone from like action sports and everything? Do you approach it differently?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that my action sports background translated into architecture photography. No,
because that's something
I'd say it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, my architecture background or whatever, because like I said, when I studied architecture, I got into photography too. So in architecture, you learn about vanishing points, composition, the rule of thirds, and all these things. So when I learned about all that stuff, I think that influenced my photography, not the other way around.
That's crazy. Because I was asking that question because there's a lot of videographers, filmmakers in skiing that have gone into more mainstream, that have gone outside of skiing, working. Some people from Quebec, some people outside of Quebec, like Nick Martini that I've had on.
Oh, yeah.
And I really think there's a way, like maybe a way of thinking out of the box that you see that in skiing, we don't come in with the typical
yeah, I mean,
approach.
in my other country, like, because I do like lifestyle, if you want, shoots, semi-fashion lifestyle shoots. And yeah, of course, my ski background then kind of kicks in where you can be creative and efficient. But architecture, it doesn't move. It's more about thinking about proportions and vanishing points and all these things. So that's where I think I love to shoot urban skiing.
Can you explain vanishing points?
Vanishing points, they're lines that go to the horizon. I don't know I don't know how to explain it properly in English, but it's a visual thing. When you look at if you're, let's say, you're downtown a city and you look on a big boulevard all the way at the end, well, all the lines that bring you to that end are the vanishing points.
Okay.
So it's like the lines that brings the way you look at an image at a specific spot. Anyways.
And then your perspective influences those.
The perspective and just aesthetics.
Something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I mean, like when I shoot urban, that's where I kind of look at the architecture a lot more. I try to understand where are we, what's the environment, and I try to make something that looks good in terms of lines and squares and vanishing points and mix colors and contrasts, which is a lot harder when you're in the mountains. Yeah, because everything's like organic and white and trees and rocks.
Because as a filmer, what I always think about is like what's the feature, what the guy is doing, and trying to do justice to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to showcase as big as it can be shown,
Mm-hmm.
or as
Yep.
gnarly or whatever. It's like really trying to do justice to the trick, and maybe add in some cinematography or some artistic side. But really, like, if it's a big jump or if it's consequential, people need to see it when you see the shot. Yeah, there's a lot of things to keep in mind, or to think of, so that the skiers are stoked on what you're doing.
Yeah, totally.
You talked a bit about Nimbus, the
Uh-huh.
trips you've gone with them.
Yeah.
What other standouts do you have? And you've probably been around the world a lot of times.
Yeah.
What are some of your standout trips from the
Japan. I love to go to Japan. Been there 9 times.
9 times?
2 on vacation, 7 for work.
With film companies?
Yeah. Was it once or twice I went with Playhouse? Went there at least 3 times for Salmon, and 2 times for IF3.
Oh, IF3 in Japan.
Yeah, IF3. Yeah, we did IF3 in Japan.
Yeah, let's get into that soon.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we haven't talked about. Destructure, IF3.
Were you one of the founders?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How does a young Félix thinks of opening a free ski and inline centered shop?
Because it didn't exist. Because I was traveling a lot already back then, and I noticed there's no good ski shops. They're all old, like traditional. Yeah, just like I had, like I said, I had a lot of friends in skateboarding and snowboarding, and I really liked that kind of spirit and the vibe, and nothing in skiing came close. And there were rollerblade shops, like, model off a skate shop, but selling rollerblades. And we already had all the right network in rollerblading. We knew all the best skaters in Canada and even the world.
To build your brand?
To build a brand, yeah. And in skiing was the same, because I was a ski photographer. So I approached 2 buddies, Dan Laroche and Serge Maheu. Serge Maheu was a rollerblader that transitioned to skiing as well. But he never made it big, but he still had a good career start, whatever. And Dan was a ramp builder. He built skate parks, and he was a ASA judge. The judges, for example, that judged X Games and so on. So all 3 of us opened the shop in 2000 in Montreal.
The first ski movies I ever bought were from Destructure on Saint Denis.
Yeah.
Those are good memories. I don't know why, I thought it was Phil Bélanger who started it.
No, Phil came on board in 2003.
Okay.
Because I had a vision to make more of these shops and kind of grow the business. And he was an athlete, like he was a Destructure athlete. Like we had a lot of really cool, really well-known skiers represent Destructure, and I think that helped kind of spread the brand. And I was like, Phil, we should open a shop in Quebec City, let's do it. And for 2 years, you're like, yeah, I'm not ready. And I think he, at one point, he realized that he had a few more years as a pro athlete, but now was the time to kind of get things started. So in 2003, we opened Quebec City.
Nice. So you're a guy of multiple projects. So
yeah.
You were living the team manager, then ski photographer life while starting a business from afar.
Mm-hmm. Well, from afar. I would spend the summers at the shop, and then the winters I'd be on the road.
How was that, juggling everything?
It was hard. I can't say that. I mean, I don't regret it, because we did something pretty cool with Destructure. We did something that was not like, we literally had like some major marketing directors from ski brands come to our shop and look what we were doing, because they saw that was the future model for core shops. But I never got to really push my photography that much, because I would kind of be splitting my time between both.
Not all into either.
Exactly, yeah.
Is it something are you still involved with Destructure?
No, I left in 2005.
Okay.
The idea was to go just do photography full time, and it didn't take long. A company called Sun Ice called me up and offered me a really, really good job. where it was like they wanted to bring back. Sun Ice was a clothing brand in Canada that was a sponsor of the Winter Olympics in Calgary in 1988. They were like the clothing sponsor for the Olympics that year. They were huge. And then they got involved in way too many sports, and it kind of semi crashed, and only golf kind of made it. And then in 2006, they wanted to kind of relaunch the ski division, and they called me up and they said, hey, do you want to kind of make it happen?
And now it's time for another sponsor break. J Skis is a company based out of Burlington, Vermont. Their business model of making limited edition graphic skis that are sold online directly to consumer is super dope. As a fan of original graphics, I love it. They put a lot of effort into making great skis, but also in making them look super good. I finally had the chance to try out my vacation skis this spring, and I gotta say I love them. They were so playful that after shooting a jump, I had to go in front of the lens and hit it myself. Knowing how much time and effort Jason Leventhal and his team put into each ski they produce, I'm really looking forward to their upcoming releases. Support companies that support skiing. Support J Skis. So you were behind that.
So yeah, I was a marketing director, team manager, photographer, and I actually even designed outfits.
All the above.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember back in those days, like Cusson was on the team. They had Colby
West.
You put on Colby West.
Frank Raymond.
Yeah.
And Antoine Gagné.
One hell of a team.
Yeah, one hell of a team. And Cusson had disappeared for years. He was like out of the loop. Like he didn't answer anybody's calls or nothing. Like no one knew where he was.
Why?
I think he was fed up with all the pressure of, trying to perform and people looking up to him. I think he didn't want the attention that much. And so I told him, like, I know you like golfing. He said, yeah. I'm like, well, we have a lot of golf gear.
So that was your way of hooking him
back?
Yeah,
that was a hook. Golf gear, like a golf sponsorship.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember, like, you did.
So now he's a Olympic coach.
Yeah.
But he would not have been there if he didn't come back on his skis.
That was it.
He was out. Like he was just, I'm going to be a pro golfer and just do that.
Completely out.
Completely out.
Yeah, and Sun Ice, their comeback didn't last long.
No, I left. I did a year as full time for them, and that's when I had the idea for the IF3, and I pitched them at the Sun Ice Free Ski Film Festival. Because then again, when I was at D-Structure, all the film crews, they would show up every fall in Montreal and do every weekend or probably 2 premieres per weekend for 2 months in a row. I'm like, this is crazy, because D-Structure, they would all come to us and, hey, can you sponsor a premiere in Montreal? Blah, blah, blah. And it just came, I thought it was just too much work, too much like...
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, diluted effort, And I'm like, we should just do a big week and a big powwow. But since I was leaving D-Structure and, I just figured like, oh, fuck it. I'm just going to go do something else. And when I was with Sun Ice, then I'm like, okay, there's a good opportunity to do this. And the boss told me no, not interested. I'm like, okay, I quit.
So then...
Well, so it wasn't that fast, but, so I was having beers and hanging out with Doug Bishop one evening, and I'm like, hey, man, I was pissed. I'm like, fuck, they didn't go for my idea. They're idiots. And he's like, oh, fuck them. You got to do it. I'm like, I'm not going to do it on my own. There's no way I'm going to do this on my own. And he's like, okay, well, I'll do it with you. Perfect. Fucking awesome. And then a week later, we're having another evening and hang out with Jeff Durocher, and he was there, and he's like, I'm in. I want to do it too. So all 3 of us started IF3 in 2007.
And you made one hell of a festival.
Yeah, I mean, off the bat, we were like, if we're going to do this, it's going to be the Cannes of ski film festivals.
Yeah, you didn't do it half.
No.
You didn't half-ass it.
Exactly.
Like, I remember I was there at the first edition, young Xavier. I went to watch Tanner's movie premiere. I didn't know it was IF3. All I knew was it was Tanner's movie.
No way.
And then once I'm there, after the movie, it's like, oh, people are going to the after party, which were the awards. Young Xavier goes in underage. And it was like the absolute, like, Tanner, drunk, jumping off the balcony.
That
and
was
like,
that night, huh?
Yeah.
You jumped off. That was pretty high.
Yeah. at Club Soda in
Yeah.
Montreal. Anyways, and then I was like, okay, this is so dope.
A lot of crazy stuff happened in those years.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, yeah. So once we had that first year in, we're like, okay, our goal is that every year we got to top it off. We got to double expectations. Like whatever you thought it's going to be better when you show up. So for 5 years we were able to do that, and after a while it got to a point where you can't go any further. We had Nike as a title sponsor with co-presented by North Face, and we had some GoPro, like all the biggest brands in the industry supporting it, and we had like an outdoor venue downtown Montreal.
They had some years where it was at another place, but most year it was at Cinéma Impérial.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many seats there were?
880.
And most of the time, if not all the time, it was sold out. So let's say, and there were like people sitting in the stairs.
Well, sold out, yes, but you got to understand there's at least 200 people that are from the ski industry, between athletes, film producers, media, sponsors. So there was a big contingent.
But then there's a lot of people from the industry that wouldn't even watch a movie because they were too busy like partying or being hangover. And
I mean, like maybe there's 800 plus people in the theater, but you got 100 or more in the lobby having drinks, and
exactly.
So the place was packed and the parties were packed, and it was really amazing. I'd say the first 5 years were really good, and then it started to slow down where the internet kind of started taking over, and a lot of free content online, and so not as much hype to see the new movies. And every year I would see the trend kind of slowing down, where one person would come and see all the films, and then he would cut in half the next year, and then it would end up that they would only watch one movie and come to parties. And the main source of income was ticket sales, and once that started to slow down, that was really hard to kind of keep it up, keep up the style of event we were producing at that time.
But yeah, for those few years, I remember there were a lot of Quebec productions going on. I had mine for a while. There was NSF, there was ESK. I remember, like, let's say for a certain movie, there's like 20 people involved, but then those 20 people all have a couple friends that want to come and party and see the movie. So there were like the biggest happenings for us of like everyone coming from like outside of Montreal to Montreal, getting hotel rooms, and like it was the happening.
I'm really proud. There's a lot of producers and filmers that came in through the door as amateur filmmakers, and today they're making major productions. Like Nick, you were talking about Nick Martini. That's an example. When they got started, they showed up to Montreal and really kicked butt. Field Productions in Norway. The guy Philip, he's like major filmmaker now, and
I don't think enough people saw their films. Like I was one that would always buy them, and it was crazy the level of productions,
the quality,
had.
High standards for sure. But that's why they won Best Am Movie of the Year. That was like their launch pad a bit.
Like in one of their first years, like 2007, something like that.
So a lot of up and comers came through the door, and today they're making movies like almost Hollywood style. Like Step, I think, is a great example because they're doing stuff for like the NBA and shit. Like they've
NFL. They did
whatever.
a commercial this summer with Ford. They were launching the Bronco. They were relaunching it. Something like that, and the commercial was done by Step.
It's insane. These guys were making street films.
They were like as core as it gets.
As core as it gets. Like they were the chorus. Some of the chorus films were made by those guys. So it's pretty cool. But Nick and his brother, they're good at business, and they're good at being cool. So
whatever they do, it's cool.
I actually went to IF3 Japan with Nick and Sean Pettit one year. We were hanging out in Tokyo for a week. It was awesome.
How were those? Versus the Montreal one?
Oh, you can't compare. Their satellite events are like But the Japanese that showed up they were super stoked. Like they were so happy. And North Face were a really good partner with us over there, and made it really like kind of happen.
And now it's time for another sponsor break. Treefort Lifestyles is a company based out of Oregon. They've been involved in the ski industry since their inception in 2011 when they made their first pair of suspenders for skiing. They produce some of the nicest accessories you can find out there for your adventure activities, whether you're going skiing, hiking, or traveling. I've worn their suspenders all winter, and I have to say I love them. They're stylish and they're so comfortable you forget you have them on in the first place. Go check them out at treefortlifestyles.com and use code Mayrand at checkout to get 15% off your order. Support companies that support skiing. Support Treefort Lifestyles.
Because you had a couple satellite events. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think your goal was it to replicate like the Montreal thing?
I'd say maybe the model was like Banff, where the main event's in Banff, and then they have all these satellites event around the world, but make it more fun where it's closer to the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to Banff, Montreal, it's kind of boring. It's just like you buy your ticket, you go watch a movie, and that's it. So IF3s were like mini me's. Except for when we brought it to France, it really, really took off. It grew so big that the promoter actually kind of broke his contract and changed the name and kept going.
Did their own event.
Did their own thing, yeah.
So you had Chile, you had Japan, France.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
Innsbruck, in Austria.
Yeah.
London. We did, I think it was Norway. We did some in Amsterdam. Where else? We even had one, I think was in New Zealand. I mean, yeah, we had.
How much work did it require from you? Like, was it a full-time job?
It was
for you?
almost full-time, yeah. I'd say 80% of my time was put into IF3 when we had all these satellite events around the world.
Because I think, like, as soon as Montreal ends, you're right up, like, thinking about next year,
weekend,
kind of.
The next weekend was France. And then was Innsbruck. That was crazy. Like those years, like there was like 2-3 years in a row that France and Innsbruck were huge. So we had Montreal, it was huge, and then go to France and then Innsbruck. So it's like a 3-week tour of like just craziness. And I mean, I got burned too, It's like
And what was your vibe going there? Were you like business wise, like making sure everything is okay, or just like enjoying and partying?
Enjoying it. Yeah, because I didn't enjoy it in Montreal because, I was running the event. But at least when I got to France, I kind of enjoyed the whole thing.
There was somebody there that was running.
Oh, yeah. The idea is like wherever we went, like I'm not the producer. Sometimes, it's not true. When we did Whistler, co-produced, like Jeff Schmuck was involved and some other guys, depending on the years. So we did Whistler quite a bit. But anything outside Canada was not produced by us. But we supported with a lot of tools and logistics. Like we built all the websites were built in like at the head office, if you want. Like, and in the first years, what we did is like a lot of film crews didn't have proper synopsis in detail about their film. So we would do like legends, like 3-star like legends. How many street or urban or big mountain or half pipe did your film have, and who's in it? And so we would get all this information and make like a book, like a magazine with all the films and all their ratings in it, and that took that was a lot of work because we did it in French and English.
Yeah, I remember the first year I submitted my movie, you were asking for that, and I was like, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but I think I Googled it, like, what's a synopsis? Like, 18-year-old, and I kind of wrote it on the fly, like, okay, I guess I'll write what my movie is about, even though it wasn't about anything other than, like, ski action. Yeah. Then you try to write something anyways. So IF3 starts in 2007, goes up in popularity, success for 5 years, you said? Yeah. Then kind of dips down slowly.
Yeah, from 2012 onward, it kind of that's where it plateaued. 2012 plateaued, and then it starts slowing down. And then I just, I realized the end was near. Either you reinvent the company, which we had plans, like we kind of thought about it. I'm like, okay, maybe we should start thinking about putting snowboarding into it. I also wanted to do a ski show, like a trade show style, where the public can come and buy gear. So for
Kind
example,
of SIA style?
no, SIA is for industry only.
Okay.
This is more with the public, like, it's during the fall. You go get 4 or 5 of the major ski shops, and they each take sort of a specialty or brands that they carry. So you want to buy your gear for the season, you can come to IF3 and buy gear. And there's like more of a big village kind of approach, because just the movie ticket sales were not going to keep the company alive. And the sponsors were also slowing down. But I figured that, it's not what I wanted personally to do. I wanted to take pictures.
Okay. You were missing the...
Oh, yeah. I've always, like, I don't know why I always start companies. It's like a problem I have where I have an idea and it's really hard not to do it.
It's a good idea.
I know it's a good idea. I'm like, fuck, someone should do it, and I'm like, no one's doing it. I'm gonna do it, So I always have these kind of impulses to kind of get these ideas into reality.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like for festivals like that, I'm not an expert at all, but from what I see, it seems like you really have to diversify into a lot of stuff. Like the one in France right now, like what's the name? High Five. They had a bigger competition that attracts a lot of people that don't know about skiing and want to see a show. Yeah. And then I think they had music concerts.
Oh, we did have a music concert.
Yeah, well, I didn't see it that way. I saw it more as like the night party. But yeah, you're right.
We had DJ Premier, Mix Master Mike.
That was crazy.
We had some pretty big names.
The reggae parties are legendary.
Cali P, reggae parties, Tanner Hall. No, we had some major parties. But yeah, I went, it was by design that we did IF3 in Annecy, France. Because I was going to Annecy. It's one of my favorite places to go in Europe. It's I've been going there since '99 because I worked for Salomon. That's where their headquarters are, and it's just perfect. It's just such a perfect place for skiing, for a ski event. And I was actively looking for 2 years for someone in France to do IF3 in Annecy.
Like you knew that was the spot.
That was the spot. I had to find someone that would be willing to produce it there, but I knew that was the spot.
But I was not familiar with Annecy before IF3 was there. And to me, it seemed odd because, let's say, Montreal is a big city with a lot of people to attract. Annecy kind of seemed small, but it seems like it's always filled.
It's a small city, but with a high percentage of skiers. The ski industry is there, or in the area. You have all the major European brands are in that area, so if they're not in Annecy, they're barely 2 hours away or whatever. So it's like the epicenter of alpine skiing.
Yeah, you're right. Whereas Montreal, there's really less skiers.
There's no industry. There is, but there isn't.
Yeah,
it's like it's diluted in a big. It's a metropolitan city, so you're diluted. There's a lot of skiers in Quebec, but they're all over the place.
Yeah, and it's not core, quote unquote, where I was in a shop this fall, I think, maybe early winter, and I think my girlfriend was looking for something, I don't remember, but I was looking at, there was a lot of people buying stuff, and like I didn't see anyone going to the snowboards, no one to like the POW skis or the park skis. It was really like the Jerry of the Day skis. Those were the one I don't think those people are looking to see the Tanner Hall movie,
No, exactly. Yeah, the kids in the park were.
Yeah, true. So what year exactly do you quit or sell, or how did it end with IF3?
I sold IF3 in 2015, but it was something that was in the works for a year beforehand. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to, because I didn't want to shut down the company. I thought that would have been sad, and like a lot of athletes and filmmakers were telling me, keep going, because they knew it. I was like kind of thinking about stopping and everything. And I didn't want to shut down the company, so we've put the word out a bit, kind of not out in the public, but kind of industry that we were thinking of like selling company or just getting out of it. And Luc Saint-Jacques came in. Luc was at one point he was a sponsor with Owl's Head. And he's like, "Yep, I'm ready for a challenge. I want to do this." And he was super stoked, and I'm really happy he took it over and he did his own thing with it, and that's awesome. I'd rather see that kind of change and evolve and adapt.
They added snowboard.
They added snowboarding, and now they have got mountain bike event and stuff. So I'm happy he's doing that, and it's going into a new direction. It's got a new life, and that's like that's my I guess something I gave to the ski industry.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things like that, like destructures like that.
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts? Like looking back, seeing how Destructure is still alive. I don't know how well it's doing, but it's still there.
I think they're doing good.
IF3 is still there.
Yeah.
How do you look back on those, like your babies that you brought into the
I'm
world?
proud, but I'm not as emotional as I was back when I was into these companies, and I was able to detach myself emotionally from all that, and say it's the past. And I think I live a lot less stress since I'm not doing Destructure or IF3, because there were companies for me that at one point brought in a lot of stress and a lot of sleepless nights thinking of a lot of details, a lot of things you got to do so it works. Whereas now it's just, my day's done, it's done. It's no biggie.
So from 2015, for a couple of years, you told me you were out of skiing.
5 years, yeah.
What were you up to?
Just photography.
Of
I
all
started
sorts?
doing a lot of studio work, product shoots, lifestyle, fashion, architecture. Still doing sports, but not sports like we know it. It's more like clothing brands, and they need someone jogging or hiking or doing whatever. So it's not like...
How is that, like staging someone running versus like Casabon throwing a...
Not as exciting, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's quite a show when you have professional athlete in front of you. Like, it's front row, being at the whatever...
Yeah.
Whatever event like X Games, or it's crazy to have witnessed the skills that I've witnessed over these 20 years. So once you go and you shoot someone running in the park, it's like, it's fun, it's work. I'm enjoying it, but it's not as thrilling for sure.
Yeah. So you did that for 5 years. Less stress, I guess, good pay.
Yeah. Better pay than whatever I did with IF3 and Destructure, like no comparison.
Yeah. So now 2021, we're standing here in Murdochville, Quebec.
In the Chic Shocks.
8 hours north, or maybe 9 hours drive north of Montreal. Tell me about that. How did you end up here?
Yeah, well, like everybody, about a year or so ago, everything stopped. And my photography and video business, because I started doing a lot more video as well, was booming until the pandemic arrived. I was, maybe at 20 to 30% growth every year for 5 years. So I had a studio, I had an office, and I even had a part-time staff that would come in a couple of days a week to do some extra work that I didn't have time to do. So things were going really well. Then everything stopped, and it kind of felt good also to have a couple months kind of just to chill and not do anything and kind of look back at things. And I just kind of realized that, okay, the next couple of years are going to be shit living in the city, because everything's going to be fucking complicated. And,
I think a lot of people had that flash.
Yeah, like I saw kind of doom and gloom, and just like everything's going to not be so much fun. And whatever work I was going to find, it's not going to be as fun and interesting work. It's going to be a lot of like, e-com, like product shots with white background and just stuff where you don't need anyone around to shoot. And I was already doing a bit, and that was like kind of a good income, but I saw it come as main income. Whereas all the cool shoots and interesting shoots were going to kind of slow down.
And did you see it as, if you were doing 100% of that, then it would suck the fun out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I enjoyed doing studio work, but not if it's 5 days a week. Like a day or two is fine, but when it becomes the main thing you do, then it's just too repetitive. And so I was already in that state of mind of like, oh shit, this is gonna really suck the next couple of years. And I received a call from Guillaume, who's the co-founder of Shake Shack, in May, and he's like, yeah, you know, I think you're gonna say no, but I'm gonna try anyways. But here it is. Like, you want to move to Murdochville? I got a job for you.
What was your first reaction?
Well, I laughed. I'm like, you know, as much as I'd love to, because I would mean I'd be skiing all the time and being in the mountains, I doubt my girlfriend's going to go for it. And
what does your girlfriend do for a living?
She had a catering business
in
Montreal, but that she also stopped because the kids were at home. And it was just not possible for her to do that work and be at home. And anyways, it was just complicated.
Yeah, just wondering, like, how does because you have 3 kids.
Yeah.
How does this 3 kids and the girlfriend fit into that?
Well, I mean, my girlfriend's really, really, really close with her family. Like, she sees her family on a weekly basis, and so leaving town was kind of, because I've got offered. A few years ago, I got offered a job for the Banff Film Festival to be the director.
Damn.
And a really good pay, but we had to move to Banff. And she's like, well, you can go. I'm going to stay here.
And plus, Banff there's worse places to go.
There's worse places to go, but she's not a skier. I mean, now she's starting to enjoy skiing because we're here and everything. But at that time,
Did you tell her now, like, hey, it could have been Banff, but now it's Murdochville?
Oh, she's like, I prefer being here than Banff. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's drive. We can drive, and since we've been here, we you know, it's not so hard for, like, during the summer. Like, her parents, they have a camper, and they came last summer, and they camped in the driveway or whatever. So it's far, but it's not that far.
Yeah.
You know, it's feasible for family to come and visit and so
half a day drive.
Yeah. So I told my girlfriend, hey, Guillaume offered me a job. I know you're going to say no, but I'm going to tell you anyway what the deal is. And she said, okay. And then she came back 5 minutes later. She's like, okay, let's do it. So that was it.
Did you talk about it maybe? Did she have the same thinking of you? Like you said, I saw that, like, living in the city might be shitty for a while.
Well, that was the main reason. She's like, there's no better time than now to go experience something different.
So you called back Guillaume and said, let's
go. And then a week or two later, I came out here with the family to shop for houses. And we were kind of bummed out because we couldn't find something that we felt was fit what we were looking for. So we went back to Montreal, kind of, we're going to have to sell for something that's not as cool or interesting that we wanted. And a week later, Eloise, who's also the co-founder of Shake Shack, she's Guillaume's girlfriend, and she said, hey, I just saw a sign in a house that's for sale on our street. And then I came right away with my girlfriend's dad to check it out, and we just bought it super cheap and tore everything out, like, just rebuild the whole thing.
So you did the whole drive to see it in person.
Yeah. Well, you have to inspect, because a lot of the homes here have been neglected.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of rundown homes, and there could be a lot of problems with the home. So this house, the structure was really good, A1 structure, but there was a bit of
moisture? No.
Mushrooms or whatever. So there was a bit of mold in the home. because it was inhabited for 3 years. So the winters it didn't get heated and some mold got in. But the most important is like the roof was not leaking and nothing was like, there was a bit of mold, but it was not unrecoverable, So we just ripped all the gyp rock off the walls and went to the main structure and re-isolated, put a new isolation in, pipes for like plumbing, electricity. So we did everything all new, and for an affordable price, just like for less than $100,000, we get a 2,000 square feet home, which is insane.
Yeah,
all
in
new.
the middle of the nature.
Yeah, in the mountains.
So I don't think we've talked about it yet. So for people who are not familiar, tell us Murdochville, Chic Shack. What is Murdochville?
Okay.
What is Chic Shack? What do you do here?
So we're in a mountain range called the Chic Shacks in Quebec, and it's one of the few, if not only, place in Eastern Canada or Eastern North America where you could actually have some real backcountry skiing. And in Murdochville, there's a company called Chic Shack, and we do backcountry skiing, and it's cat skiing, touring, and even heli skiing. And this is based in Murdochville. Murdochville was a mining town, and the mine closed, if I'm not mistaken, in '99, and it became a ghost town. The whole half the town moved out, so half the buildings were abandoned. It was looking really, really grim. And then one day, Guillaume and Eloise in 2006, I think, they showed up here and they saw the potential. They're like, hey, this could become a tourism destination for skiing. And nobody believed in them, but they worked really, really, really hard to build their business up. And today it's a pretty serious player, if not the biggest player in the Chic Shacks for backcountry skiing. And they hired me as a marketing director to kind of help them kind of go to the next level. I guess
grow the business,
grow the image
yeah.
of the business, because they're handling the operation sides. They bought the church this year or last year, but we've been renovating the church. It's going to be our headquarters. It's going to be like a concert hall, restaurant, bar, head office, rental space, whatever. Like the whole thing is going to happen at the church, and that's connected to the presbytery, which is our sort of bed and breakfast inn. We got 2 inns here in Murdochville, 2-3 houses. We got a motel. We got the ski resort. There's a ski resort with a T-bar. I think it's the oldest running T-bar in North America or something like that.
I had never seen a T-bar like that.
It's 50 years old.
Like all the ones I saw were like just a cord, and this one is like a big metal rod.
Yeah. You got to be careful, because if you let it go too soon, it's going to fucking tear your arm off.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like on one side, buying the church, there isn't a biggest symbol of like a town than the church.
Yeah.
And so basically
so it's a new religion now. It's a religion of powder.
Of skiing. That's dope.
Skiing, yeah.
And plus, it's like, what is it? It's like 100 feet, 200 feet from the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
Like people can go up from skiing and go there.
Maybe on the West Coast it's different because you're in, the Rockies, and it's something that's very natural to say, hey, I'm going to go out of my home and start skiing or whatever. But in Quebec, to have like a backcountry mountain, because we have the Porphyre, which is a mountain that you literally put on your skis with skins, and you hike up, you skin up, like literally, like people are, getting out of the home, don't need to drive anywhere. There's a backcountry mountain next door, and then there's a ski resort in front of, it's like, it's all around us. And it's the same for mountain bike. Mountain bike is starting to pick up here, although the infrastructure is not there to really receive a lot of tourists, but the locals are starting to make their own trails and stuff like that. So I think it's going to come up next few years.
So how's your experience been in almost a year now?
Yeah, we arrived last July.
Okay. How's your experience been, like moving from Montreal to here, and also on the business side? Like, what's your big projects for Chic Shack on the marketing side?
Oh, the biggest project was actually to change the brand image, logos, and just everything. Build a new website. So that was the biggest challenge, I would say, because to tell them, well, we got to scrap whatever you had and start new. They were kind of not 100% on board with it, but once we got the work done, I hired Guillaume Perus, who was our graphic designer, our designer at IF3, because I know his style and I know that he can do something really clean without, breaking the bank. And he's a skier, so we were able to kind of pay him and also offer him some cat time.
And he understands what you're selling.
Exactly. That's the most important thing when you hire people that have to do creative work, is understand what's the universe they have to work within.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't have to explain to him. He's already in.
Yeah. So that was the biggest thing. Then from now on, it's going to be trying to develop our other activities outside skiing, because skiing, I think we're well known for the ski. Although there's a lot of people who don't know Chic Shack yet, but at least we have a good base. But rafting and fly fishing is other activities we have during spring. And in the summer, we have an outdoor, I don't know how to say it in English, but sort of outdoor resort. We have a lake with cabins and 100+ camping sites. So that's another part of our business that can grow a lot still. And we have mountain bike trails.
So it's really a year-round resort.
It's almost year-round, yeah. Pretty close to year-round. I think in the future that it is going to become like a resort, but a backcountry style resort.
Mm-hmm. That's dope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have other mountains that we're going to be opening up next few years. So there's a lot of terrain still to be
yeah. I
skied.
didn't get to explore much, given right now the conditions weren't the best, but it definitely made me want to come back next year and see what it looks like with powder, because the terrain is nice.
Yeah. I'd say the Montmiller, our ski resort, it's just a T-bar. It's called a ski resort, but basically it's 2 hills with 1 T-bar. When it snows here, no one goes touring. You don't go touring in the blizzard, but you come here, you get the T-bar, and it's like your experience backcountry, but on a ski hill.
And it's some good steep runs.
It's steep, yeah. There's some good steep hills.
Whereas for a lot of Quebecers and maybe East Coasters in general, we don't get that much steep.
No.
And when we saw that, we were like, oh man, what if there's powder in there?
I know. I'm so stoked for my kids because they're gonna get to grow up the next few years skiing here, and they're gonna be able to ski anywhere afterwards.
Yeah. How old are they?
I got 2, 7, and 8.
Yeah, at 7 and 8, they're at the ripe age to start.
Oh yeah, they just when they started the season, they were having a hard time going up the T-bar and going down the hill. They were scared because it was steep and stuff. No, they just go with their friends, and they don't even want me to be around.
That's so great.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun chatting with you. Thanks for coming on again.
Thanks, you.
Really
It was a
appreciate
pleasure.
it. Hope we hear a lot from Chic Shack in the next. I
you
think
will.
we'll be hearing a lot.
I think you will.
Thanks,
This year
Félix.
was not a good year, but both for snow and for restrictions and the COVID thing and everything.
COVID seemed like a hassle for you.
Huge hassle, because we can have more than one bubble per building. So even if we have an inn that has 10 rooms or whatever, it was one bubble. So
That could be 2-person.
It could be 2-person in the whole place. We were not allowed to have more than that.
It's almost to a point where you're like, do we shut down for the winter or
anything lodging related, we're operating at a loss for sure. But at the same time, we got to keep our staff going. You don't want to lay off everyone. And
kind of a social responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 30 people that work here during the season.
Are you like I guess you are the biggest employer of the town?
No, there's actually SAQ, which is like the Quebec driving license.
Other than public employer.
Yeah. In private sector, we're probably the biggest, yes, in the private sector.
Well, thanks again for coming on.
You're welcome.
It was really good talking to you.
It was a pleasure.
Cheers.
So this is it for episode 16. Big thank you to Félix for getting on the podcast, and to this episode sponsors, Dic Anns Restaurant, Axis Boardshop, Treefort Lifestyles, J Skis, and Planks Clothing. Peace.